Cinematic whispered voice over imagery of a dim parlor, a single rocking chair slowly turning, two children sitting, never aging. The Ellington's secret will haunt your soul. Cut, oil lamp guttering. Children's laughter echoes, fade to black. The voice, they never grew older. This instant sets a pulse, throbbing dread, and begs a question. What became of the abandoned children in the Ellington household? Between 1847 and 1912, in rural Vermont, the Ellington family became known as blessed philanthropists. They ran a church orphanage that succeeded in rescuing dozens of destitute children. But rumors persisted. The children never aged. Decades later, townsfolk whispered of spectral figures on the lawn at dusk, small faces frozen in time. This film unspools the buried story of corruption, faith, and something inhuman masquerading as charity. We begin in 1847 outside Ellington Seminary for Children. The camera tracks over a stark two-story stone building, iron-barred windows, the frost. Cracked steps crawl with moss. A church spire chimes midday, sonorous, ominous. Inside, children's tiny voices chant catechism, but their faces, pale, blinkless, unchanging. One child, Mary, age 6, and still 6 10 years later. The seamstress nurse, Mrs. Carver, notes they have no marks of time. Her voice shakes. In 1853, a local mother brought her orphaned son to the Ellingtons. He had golden curls, bright eyes. She never saw him again. Officially, he ran away. But nights later, distant screamings roll from the seminary walls. Town constables record nothing. Ellington's influence in church and state silences questions. The mother, grief, dazed, becomes mute. Her house remains empty, curtains closed. Rumor saying she speaks only to ghosts. The Ellingtons were pillars of the local Presbyterian synod. Donations flowed. Ministers visited weekly. The orphanage had a sanctified air, but behind the stained glass windows, corridors breathed with an oppressive hush. Children were catalogued, baptized, fitted with names and numbers. A ledger dated 1860 details 8 children as achromatic, stasis, time, locked. These cryptic terms vanished after a church audit. Researchers later found the ledger burned or hidden. In the children's playroom stood a large dollhouse replica of the seminary. Every evening at dusk, the dolls, porcelain figures, would rearrange. Figures stood by windows. Children sat limply at a table, the lamp inside flickering though no one lit it. Staff reported, "It's as though unseen hands stage it." The dollhouse becomes a symbolic microcosm. Control at play, innocence suspended, observers mere spectators to something ancient and malignant. Neighbors whisper of a stench on winter nights from the seminary cellar, a sickly sweet odor, like rotting lilies. A local miller, Samuel, sneaks close once, sees children's laughter echo under the floorboards though no windows open. He runs screaming, falls ill, and refuses to speak. The town council passes a resolution to praise the Ellingtons, but no one questions the orphanage's nocturnal operations again. In 1872, a traveling minister wrote a journal. He describes children who seemed dull, like perfect stillness, voices unreflective. He dared record that the Ellington patriarch summoned him, instructing deletion of his remarks. The next day, the minister disappeared, officially left for missionary work in Brazil. Rumor says he was never seen again. His wife received a note, "God's will is to preserve the children." She tore it up, wept for weeks, then vanished from records. The Ellingtons purported to help grieving widows, but some mothers paid a high price. They donated children, they believed, for education. In reality, the Ellingtons performed experiments, ancient rituals drawn from obscure book, alchemy, ecclesiastical rites, seeking to bind time to flesh. They believed they could trap innocence, preserve it, but something else was bound, an ancient trauma from native folklore, summoned when desperate grief merged with dark liturgy. In 1891, a buried letter emerges. A mother writes to her dead daughter, "You are still there, still 6, still waiting for me." The letter speaks of dreams, a little girl beckoning from behind barred windows, a lullaby repeating in the halls. The letter was hidden inside an old Bible, found decades later. It evokes forbidden longing, a desperate mother seeking her time, locked child but never granting freedom. Profiles, Anna, age 5 in 1850, still 5 in 1880. James, age 8 in 1865, not 8 in 1900. Staff log reveals names, birth, dates, entry dates, never exit. Year after year, anniversaries come and go while children remain identical. Photographs from 1880 show the same faces as daguerreotypes from 1860. At night, staff report the children whispering, "What year is it? I am frightened." But the ledger lists no fear, only time locked within flesh. In a storm, racked night of 1902, lightning strikes the seminary spire. A priest follows the children into the sealed basement. He describes a locked circle, standing stones carved with throat, cut glyphs, children standing motionless in candlelight. He fled before the final incantation. In town, worshippers later speak of thunderous chanting from within church walls. The next morning, half the children are missing, only still bodies remain. Rumor says they vanished into the ritual itself. A nurse, Sister Helena, kept a hidden journal. She describes children flinching when the caretaker enters, but no caretaker appears. She hears breathing beneath floorboards. She dreams of faceless children pressing against the ceiling. Eventually, she is confined to the asylum, scribbling on walls, "It knows me, I cannot unsee." Decades later, asylum records vanish. Her notes survive in fragments. Hints of deep personal terror, blurred script, blood spatters, pleas for mercy. In 1920, new families arrive. They find the seminary abandoned, full of dusty chairs and silent bedrooms. Townsfolk refuse to speak, their eyes haunted. One child, now grown, returns with a photograph of a little girl, her sister, smiling at the door. He says she is still waiting. The building is torn down that year, but workers report children's footprints in fresh cement. Then those workers vanish. In 1948, a historian unearths partial foundations east of the demolished site. Beneath layers of mortar, he finds a sealed crypt. Inside, dozens of porcelain dolls seated around a stone basin, human-sized gloves, charred ledger pages with Latin incantations. The historian dies in a fire that same night. His notes, partially carbonized, mention a veil between time, shattered by grief. The police report the scene as accidental. Locals speak of ghostly children glimpsed at dusk along the old path. Children who stand still at 7, 8, never blinking. A psychic investigator in 1950 photographs faint orbs and ears, splitting laughter. She writes, "Their eyes see me, but I cannot see theirs." The trauma is not historical, it persists. The Ellingtons' orphanage becomes a metaphor. Innocence corrupted by institutional power, grief weaponized by dogma, time frozen by ritual, the dollhouse, the ledger, the sealed crypt, all symbols of a horror buried by authority, concealed within sanctified walls. The viewer now feels the burden of suppressed mothers, the endless longing of children who never grow. We explore guilt, the town's complicity, the church's willful blindness, the Ellington patriarch's descent into fanaticism. The horror is psychological, trapped childhood, faith twisted, trauma fossilized. We present recovered documents, charred ledger fragments, ledger burn marks, diary entries, photographs comparing the same child across decades. A forensic voiceover reads them aloud. A modern historian, Sommer, declares no official record acknowledges a single case, but the survivors, they still wait. Back to the present, nighttime shot of the woods behind the old Ellington site. A wisp of laughter drifts, a child's silhouette stands among the trees, small hand extended. The voice returns, they never grew older, they never were set free, and some secrets were never meant to be unearthed. Fade to black. Silence, then one soft, "I am still 6. End."